Let me show you something this time. Look at the top. Hello, right back here. Look at the top. This time, notice what we're going to deal with. Our A is not going to be equal to 1. Because our A is not going to be equal to 1, when we get to the mod table, there's going to be an extra step after we get our numbers to factor. And this is the hardest part to remember. When you do A times C, when the number is not 1, you have to come back and do a divided step. But before we get to that, let me show you first when you have a greatest common factor before the factoring. Okay, because I don't want you to get mixed up and think that you would proceed to doing the mod table, because you have to factor out the greatest common factor. It's a trinomial. We haven't done one like this that has a greatest common factor with a trinomial. What is the greatest common factor?
3.
Say it again.
3.
Thank you. So what you would do here is divide everything by 3 first. Now, keep this in mind. When your greatest common factor does not have a variable with it, it's not going to be part of the solution. Because if there's no variable with it, then when you get down to solving for x, there's no x. So since there's not a variable with it, I'm going to tell you right now, it's not going to be needed. This 3 is not going to be needed in the final answer. First, tell me, what do you get when you divide everything by 3?
X squared plus 3x minus 4 equals 0.
Good job. I have 3 terms.
Mod table.
So I'm going to say 1 times -4 is -4. And we want it to multiply to give me that, but add to give me 3. That means the bigger number has to be positive, because that number is positive. What are my factors? Well, 1 times 4.
-1
And then 2 times 2. And mind you, things are kind of obvious. So I'm going to take the numbers x minus 1, x plus 4, set equal to 0. Remember when I told you that 3 was not relevant? Let me show you why it's not relevant. If I were to put this answer back here and then split and set everything equal to 0, 3 will not equal 0. Because this does not have an x with it, it is unnecessary to even include it in the final part. You could just eliminate that part and go straight to these here and changing the signs. So, questions on that?
No, ma'am.
Good deal. Now let's get to the problem where we have to do what I call slide divide. For example 3, I'm skipping example 2 because example 2 is just like example 1. You just take the greatest common factor away. But example 3 is one that doesn't have a greatest common factor, but A is greater than 1. So, what do we do first?
Mod table.
You're right. We still do the mod table. We have 2 multiplied by -5, which gives me a -10. We want it to add to be 3, so my bigger number has to be positive. Okay, how can I get 10? Well, let's see. There's 1 times 10
-2.
and 2 times 5. These are my numbers.
-2.
But this is where the steps increase. Because this number right here is greater than 1, then when you write your factors, x minus 2, x plus 5, you have to take the number you multiplied by and divide it. Let me show you where that goes. This 2 that you multiplied, you're going to divide it here, and you're going to divide it here.
Can we just do it the other way?
You mean we write the
Yeah,
numbers
can
out?
I just like
Yeah, where
do
you-
it where you put the line down and all that?
If you want to do it that way, you can. I'm just going to show you from here. When you simplify, you get x minus 1 times x plus 5 over 2. And guess what you're going to do with those signs now? Just split it and change the signs. That's the only reason why I didn't do the extra step, but you can. You can do that, what they were saying. Because right here at this point, they were saying, can we do the extra step? Here's the extra step. You write 2x squared. And then take the 2 numbers that I use right here and write them in the middle. Minus 2x plus 5x. And then, what was that, a -5? Yeah. From here, you have to split. Find the greatest common factor here. And then here. Then you'd have to say 2x outside of and 5 outside of. Then you'd have to divide, and you're left with x minus 2, not x minus 2, x minus 1, I'm sorry. X minus 1, x minus 1. Then you put it together and say 2x plus 5, because those two go together, times x minus 1. Then you split and solve. The reason I skipped that is because I just wanted to get to the part where you can see that when you divide by 2, you're still getting there.
Why do you divide those things like this?
The reason is when you're dividing by 2, in this case here, the number that when you're multiplying by is not 1. Your factors cannot go straight to this here, because think about it like this. If I were to check my work by distributive property, checking my work with distributive property means I would multiply this times this times this. Is there any way possible that I'm going to be able to get that 2 back into the picture if I have x times x? No. So you know there has got to be the 2 as one of my coefficients in those terms. So how you can get the 2 back into the picture is by simply dividing by the 2. That brings it back in, and you'll have the right number then. Look, from right here, you don't have to do this. You can go straight to this. Notice this one. You can just go straight to changing the sign. If you do not want to do the shortcut like this, you can go back to what I wrote on the side over here. You can do this if you want to, but the way I'm going to do it is like this. The only negative is you got to remember when to divide, and that's the one thing that y'all have not done. So if you want, you can revert back to this if it's comfortable and you can remember. Okay, I want to do number 4, just like this one right here. Okay, I'm almost done. Number 4 is a trinomial with no greatest common factor. Everything is set equal to 0. So what am I going to do?
My table.
Yes. And I'm going to write myself a note because my a is greater than 1. I'm writing that down so I will remember that I have to divide by that 8 when I'm done. So my my table gives me 40 when I multiply, but then I want negative 22.
Negative 2 and negative 20.
Since both of the numbers, since this is a positive and this is a negative, both of the numbers have to be negative, just so you know. Got it?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me see. You said 2, 20. Is that it? Yep, 2 and 20. I was about to go through all the numbers. I was going to say 4 and 10 and everything else, and then I looked. And, oops, 2 times 20 is 40. And then if I add them, I get negative 22. So I'm going to stop and process for a second. You know what I'm doing with those two numbers, right? I'm going to write them in my factor form. If you want to go the long route, go ahead, okay? From here, because my a was greater than 1, I simply divide by the number that I multiply. So that number right here comes right there. Now, remember when I said write your answers as reduced fractions? Well, what is 2 over 8 reduced?
1/4.
So I have x minus 1/4 times x minus 5/2 equals 0. What do you think you do now? Each one equals. So I'm basically just changing my signs here. I'm only writing the steps, and so you know how I got it. X is 1/4. X is 5 over 2. Right with your curly braces. So tired. Question. Good job. This is where I stop them. Short video. I think I forgot to record.